Okay, so the agenda for today is basically we're going to finish talking about the fast food, the calorie labeling or calorie posting law that or the paper that we started on Friday, and then I'll talk very briefly about like a few other papers and the sort of like obesity policy literature in general that have been written by economists. One of them has some relevance to, I guess, a couple of ballot measures that I think, well, I know this one in San Francisco, I think there's one in Berkeley also on soda tax, so if you happen to actually be a registered voter in Alameda County in the city of Berkeley, I guess you can vote on that tomorrow. And then we're going to actually sort of transition into the last section of the course, which will be the next 4 or 5 weeks, where we'll be talking more about the healthcare side of health economics, basically. So the field of health economics is kind of broken into two broad areas. One is the health production function. So a lot of stuff that we've been talking about so far, it falls under that rubric of health production function, and that's basically just sort of like economists' way of like saying things that we as a society do, like policies that we might implement that can affect health, sort of like population health in general. Then the other side is a bit more sort of like related to industrial organization, IO, which is more about how the healthcare system itself is actually organized and how it functions or doesn't function, and whether it runs efficiently, and sort of what incentives the different players have in it, from insurers to medical personnel like doctors and hospitals to the patients themselves. So we're going to spend more time in the last like 4 weeks or so talking about sort of that side, which is the actual healthcare industry side. So the first like introduction to that like general category is going to the slides are going to basically be like introduction to healthcare spending in general, because it's so healthcare is important both because it's important to the health of the population, but also because it's a very large share of the economy and it's been growing more over time. So the first approximation, like I think the two things, if you were to ask an economist like what are the two sectors that have been growing at a rate that is much faster than inflation, healthcare would probably be the first one they name, even if they aren't like health economists, and then the second one that they probably have some familiarity with would be higher education. So the paper that we were talking about on Friday, basically the finding, the sort of aggregate finding was that total calories per transaction at the Starbucks locations in New York City fell by like 6% relative to Starbucks locations in their two control cities, which were Philadelphia and Boston. And this was all happening on like the food side. So on the beverage side, there was no real change in the number of calories per drink or the number of calories per order. But on the food side, it fell by I think something like 15%. So kind of averaging 0% and 15%, and waiting for the fact that people are more likely to buy food than, or sorry, more likely to buy beverages than food. You found like an overall drop of about 6% in terms of calories per transaction. Half of the reduction was occurring from reduction just in the number of food items purchased. So people are purchasing less, and then on average, the things that they are purchasing tend to be somewhat lower calorie than the average thing that was being purchased before. So about half is coming from just the reduction in total items, and the other half is coming because the items that are being purchased are on average lighter than before. The effects did appear, they kind of like, they don't know the income of any specific customer or anything, but they know the neighborhoods that the Starbucks are in, so they can match that, the Starbucks locations to like neighborhood level characteristics in terms of income and education and so forth. The effects did seem somewhat stronger in higher income, more educated areas, and then as I mentioned at the very end, it seemed like the effects were appearing for cardholders in the non-New York City stores. So there's like two reasons why we might expect for the calorie labeling law to actually have an effect. So the first reason would be sort of like a pure information provision reason, which is to say that before people might not have known how many calories were in specific food items that they were buying. Then they find out, maybe it turns out that these items are more caloric than they thought, so they change their purchasing habits and try to start avoiding them. So that would just be basically sort of the information story. And if that's what's going on, then you would probably expect that not only would they stop ordering these items at the New York City stores, but they would also stop ordering them at other Starbucks stores that they might visit. So in particular, some individuals like living in New Jersey or Westchester County or something like that. And so when they go back and visit the Starbucks in their own residential neighborhood, they don't order these items anymore, even though there's no calorie posting laws there. The other reason would have been what economists refer to as salience. So the idea here is not that you didn't know that the item, that whatever, say the bagel that you were buying had 500 calories, but rather that and if you didn't know that, so bagels actually are pretty caloric. But so rather than not knowing that, it's simply that you sort of don't really like think about it when you're ordering it. So if there's a big sign that says this is how many calories the bagel has, then when you place your order, you think it's pretty bad, so you decide not to order it. But if you went to another store where they didn't have that sign, even though you sort of if somebody like forced you to think about it and asked you exactly how many calories the bagel had and you happen to know, despite the fact you have the knowledge, it's not really sort of salient when you're making the order, and so you don't end up sort of reacting to the number of calories. You know it, but it's not sort of presented to you right at that time of ordering. So the bottom line is it doesn't seem like it's so much of a salience effect, because if that were true, then we would expect that when they go back to the Starbucks in their residential neighborhoods that are outside New York City, where they're not like presented with the calorie counts at the time of order, then maybe they wouldn't sort of reduce the calorie count of the items they're ordering. But in fact, we observe that they do seem to do that. And again, the reason they're able to find this is because people are using, at least some subset of people are using their like Starbucks loyalty cards or their Starbucks account card, so they can actually track across those. Okay, so the bottom line for the Starbucks papers, they do find some effect. It's not with the beverages, which maybe is a little bit surprising, just because I think a lot of people would have had the prior that the beverages are kind of like deceptively caloric, that they have a lot of calories, but people don't necessarily think of them as drinking a lot of calories at the time that they consume them. So maybe you would have expected that these calorie postings to sort of shock people into changing their beverage orders. That doesn't appear to have happened, but for the food items, it does appear to have happened. And there's sort of I think in the paper they don't really forget if they even presented it all. I know I saw Alan Sorensen, one of the authors, present the paper here, and he did talk about specific effects on very specific food items. I forget if that made it in the final paper or not, because it was kind of suggestive evidence. It wasn't super strong, but it was a little bit like some of the patterns you saw were kind of consistent with what you would have thought, in the sense that there were some very caloric items like I don't know, like a muffin or some big donut or something that had 400 or 500 calories, and that when they revealed when they rolled out the calorie posting information, you actually didn't see a change in the frequency at which people were ordering those items, which might be a little bit surprising because you're thinking like, oh, these are very unhealthy, shouldn't people sort of react and realize how unhealthy these are? The thing is that these items people already knew they were unhealthy, right? So the only thing that should matter is giving people information they didn't have before, and most people know that donuts are unhealthy, and so telling somebody, look, this donut has 400 or 500 calories doesn't really give them any new information they didn't already have. If anything, maybe they thought it had 600 calories. Now they find us a little healthier than they thought. So you didn't really see an effect on like unhealthy items per se, but you did seem to see some effect on like deceptively unhealthy items. So there was something like, I think it was either the bagel, which again, bagels like often have 400 or 500 calories, but a lot of people don't necessarily realize that, or maybe there was some sort of like multi-grain thing that sounded healthy, but in fact had like 400 or 500 calories. So there were a couple of items that were like that, where they kind of appeared to maybe be a healthier choice, but in fact they had just as many calories as like a big donut. And so for those items, you did actually see a reduction in the frequency of ordering after the calorie posting law got rolled out. So there is some sort of, if you look item by item, I think there's some evidence that's kind of consistent with the idea of you're providing information, new information to people in some cases, and not providing them any information they didn't already realize in other cases. So if we think about the effect of the law sort of overall, if you kind of do some back of the envelope calculations, you can pretty quickly conclude that it's not likely to have any big reduction on obesity. On the other hand, so the sort of benefits, we're thinking of the benefits here as being reducing obesity rates, they're not going to be very high. On the other hand, the costs are also not very high. In some cases, so I think for a lot of these restaurants, if you go to like McDonald's, any place where they don't have a calorie posting law, they'll still have either a poster somewhere that says nutritional information, or you can ask for a brochure, or you can just go to the website. So they're already calculating all of this stuff anyway for the larger chains. So it basically costs them almost nothing. All they have to do is update their menus to add the calorie count. So there's really not much cost to these laws. So sort of very modest benefits, but also very modest costs. So you might sort of think of it as just being generally worthwhile. There was a similar study of fast food restaurants that used customer receipts. So ideally, I think like for Bollinger and Leslie Sorensen and the authors, they probably would ideally rather had like McDonald's data or something. Some restaurant that the calorie law was like specifically targeted toward. As far as I know, nobody has gotten access to like universal purchase data from one of the big fast food chains. But some other researchers, like I think in public health, did try to do a sort of smaller scale study where they basically camped out outside of fast food restaurants, which as I've seen in my own research is an easy way to get data. The employees don't looking to interfere with you. And so they basically targeted like several restaurants in New York City before and after the calorie posting law rolled out, and then also several restaurants in like Newark or some other close cities. So they had a few treaty restaurants and a few control restaurants, and they basically just paid people to give them their receipts. So they paid them like $1 or something like that if they turned over their receipt upon coming out, and then they just had research assistants like code up all of the items that were purchased on their receipts to see whether or not there was actually a reduction in number of items ordered or like calories per item ordered in the restaurants that were affected by the policy after it rolled out. And there again wasn't any any indication of any large effects. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be any big impacts from calorie posting laws. If you scale up the estimates from the Starbucks paper, basically what you would conclude is that calorie posting laws, so basically, if you take their estimates and assume that the same effects apply in fast food restaurants, which I think is probably an upper bound, because again, there were some smaller scale studies that did look at the fast food restaurants and didn't seem to find anything. But if you kind of assume that in proportional terms, those estimates also apply to the fast food restaurants, and then you look at sort of how often the average person eats out at a fast food restaurant, I think overall you might conclude that the calorie posting law could reduce caloric intake by something like 30 calories per day. That's really not a lot. It's like a bit of a Coke or something like that. So in the long run, that would probably only cause the average person to maybe lose like a couple pounds, and that ignores any sort of possibility of like offsetting effects if somebody happened to eat a little bit more later in the day because they had eaten less earlier in the day or something like that. So this is not going to take like average BMIs up down from like 26 to 22 or something like that. This would only have some very marginal effects, or maybe affect a very small number of people.
Did they calculate whether it was a loss for the restaurant, like instead of buying a muffin?
Yeah, so that's a good question. You mean basically whether or not it affected the restaurant's profits? Yeah, so I think they, I don't know that they had like specific profit data for Starbucks. I have to go back and check. I'd be a little bit surprised because that would be like pretty proprietary. But I know they definitely were sort of doing a comparison of like sales at Starbucks. I think they look at like, I don't know, Dunkin' Donuts or something. It's like a control group or something like that. But basically I think they concluded that the effects on like profitability of the firm would be extremely minimal, if not zero. It's also not clear. I mean, I guess if you're doing welfare analysis, you want to take into account the effects on consumers and the profits of the firm. The thing is, like, it's a little bit, you are providing consumers with more information. Like that's all you're doing. You're not forcing Starbucks to make any changes in terms of how it runs its business, other than just posting these laws. But you're not saying like you have to cook your stuff a different way or anything like that. So I think sort of the gut reaction of most economists would be that providing more information should not reduce overall sort of welfare between consumers plus producers, because when we appeal to like the competitive market as generating good outcomes, one of the assumptions we make is like perfect information. So generally, we think that would be overall a good thing, but it obviously could be a little bit of a bad thing from Starbucks' perspective. The other thing I should say is like it's not. So you could imagine that maybe there would be a longer run impact or longer run response. So there's sort of two possible responses, right? The first response is just the initial reaction of consumers. So you have a calorie posting law, and consumers might sort of switch the things they're ordering, reduce the number of items they're ordering, which we see on the margin does happen here, and then also maybe like shift their business between restaurants. So like sort of substitute away from unhealthy chains and towards like healthier chains. And then so that would kind of be like the initial response. But then the firms themselves could react to what consumers were doing. So the firms might react by sort of revising their menus, using like whatever less fat or something like that in the preparation of some of their items, or like introducing newer, healthier items and so forth. And given the time frame that the authors in the study are looking over, like you would not expect the firms to react all that quickly, because they're looking at something like a 7 or 8 month period or something after the calorie posting law rolls out. So it would probably take a while for the firms to sort of even analyze and conclude what was potentially happening with sales of various items, and then they have to go back and start thinking about what new items they want to offer and so forth. So there could be sort of longer run reactions. Although again, given that the consumers don't seem to be responding all that much, I tend to think the firms probably aren't going to react that much to the consumers' response. The other thing is, if you if there was going to be a sort of a response by the firm, you probably need these laws to be occurring more than just in like New York City, even though it's the biggest city in the sense that like Starbucks is a national chain. They would probably view it as pretty expensive to have like a special set of items and menus that they were preparing just for New York City and not for other cities. So I think that the extent the firms actually sort of change their behavior in terms of what they're supplying, that would be more likely to occur once the policy becomes like much more prevalent nationwide than just like local policy. So again, the bottom line is it's very low cost. Like, if you ask me personally, I'd say sure, there's no problem with providing more information. But I also wouldn't view it as some sort of like silver bullet that's really going to address the obesity problem or like eliminate the obesity problem. So a couple other papers that are in this literature. So there was a paper by Datar and Nicosia that basically used the school composition as what we call an instrumental variable for junk food availability. So this was kind of an interesting paper that basically leveraged the fact that so in some schools, in some districts, I think this was like in California, basically what was what the schools were able to do was offer like vending machine access to like middle school students, but not to elementary school students. And so what they did is essentially sort of looked at purchases and body mass index for like elementary school students in K through 8 schools relative to elementary school students in like K through 5 schools. So the idea here is that essentially like the K through 8 schools would have access, or maybe it was the opposite of either that, or it was like looking at the middle schoolers in like whatever 6 through 8 versus K through 8. But whichever way it was going, essentially what was happening is like when you combined the the middle schoolers with the elementary schoolers in one school, so in like a full K through 8 school, then either the elementary school kids would have access to the vending machines, or they would prevent access for the middle schoolers if the policy was based that the elementary schools couldn't have it. And when you had the separate elementary school and separate K through 5 and then separate 6 through 8, then basically the 6 through 8 kids have access and the K through 5 don't have access. So essentially like they had like a treated group and a control group here, and there was like the sort of an introduction of the policy, and so some students were getting vending machines and some weren't. What they basically found was that there was some evidence of in-school purchases changing. So like the students who had access to these vending machines did report buying like more food from the school than the students who didn't, and pretty much like because these are vending machines, most of the food that gets served is what you would consider to be junk food because it has to be shelf stable for long periods of time. You can't, like fruits and vegetables go to vending machines or something like that. So there was evidence of sort of purchases changing, but there was actually no effect they could measure on body mass index. So again, I think this is suggestive of this idea that that there could be substitution. So kids are buying junk food at vending machines. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're eating more junk food overall. It just might mean that they're not buying it at the store on the way to school, or they're not getting it from home or something like that. So the total amount when they looked at, so they had like surveys of consumption for some of these kids, and so the total amount of soda plus fast food did not appear to change. So if you sort of took the net or the aggregate amount of in-school and out-of-school purchases, it seemed like basically these in-school purchases were just to some extent crowding out some of the out-of-school purchases that would have otherwise happened if they didn't have access to the vending machines. And then there was also a paper by Fletcher and co-authors in 2010, which did look at the effect or the impact of these soda taxes on consumption. So this is at the state level rather than at the individual level. And I don't know that not all of these taxes might necessarily have been like aimed at health. I mean, you also have things like redemption value for the cans and stuff like that. But at any rate, so they looked at sort of states that increased the sort of net amount of taxes on soda products and compared those to states that didn't. And what they found was essentially that there was some modest reduction in soda consumption. So in other words, people do have some price elasticity with respect to the price of soda. So if you raise the price, they do seem to reduce it somewhat. But it seemed to be offset by an increase in juice consumption and whole milk consumption. So sort of on net, it wasn't clear that they were getting all that much fewer calories being consumed by drinking than if they didn't have the soda tax. Juice is like something that's on the margins like healthier than soda, but it still contains a lot of sugar. So in general, like if you're talking to nutritionists, they advise not drinking too much juice, but rather probably drinking water for the most part. So I guess that has implications for the soda taxes that are on the ballots in San Francisco and Berkeley. I know that so I don't know, like maybe if you're you guys are probably living on campus, so maybe you also have been inundated with all sorts of like junk mailers and so forth. Regarding the soda taxes, it seems like the soda companies are pretty like they seem concerned about these taxes. I mean, I can't imagine like Berkeley and San Francisco, even San Francisco, that's probably a rounding error in their total sales. So I don't think they actually care specifically about whether these two cities pass the soda taxes, but I assume they view it as like potentially a precursor to like more widespread adoption of these types of policies. So they seem to be pretty interested in pouring in a lot of money to defeat it. I have no idea what the goals are. I don't really know. I'll probably just vote for it because I don't have strong opinions one way or the other, but I do hate getting like lots of junk mail. So certainly on the margin, all the mailers are sending me make me more likely to vote for it, even though they'll say no. But I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on obesity, but it's probably I don't think there's like much of a downside to reducing people's soda consumption despite that. Say that preferences are solving somewhere. Okay, so that's pretty much it in terms of the obesity stuff. So the next set of topics is on healthcare expenditures. So I mentioned this, I think, at various points before, but as you get older, you will inevitably have more contacts with the healthcare system in the United States, and when that happens, you will be shocked at exactly what the list prices are. So this is a sample hip replacement bill for one of my colleagues in the economics department. It's actually, this is from like probably a decade ago now, so I'm sure it costs even more today than it did back then. But this is the bill that basically the hospital sent to him after he had a hip replacement. And you can see that so some of the items that jump out here are not things that you would have necessarily guessed would be that expensive. So for example, he's just spending a few days in the hospital, but he has room charges that total like $11,500. So this is basically just like being in the room. Technically, so if you're just sitting in the room and nothing else really happens to you, they're going to say, okay, well, that cost us $11,500. Then that's sitting in like the hospital room, which is really just room for bed and some equipment in it. Going into the operating room costs you like $43,500. So again, that's like technically just going into the operating room and being there, but not actually like having the operation done. You've got some like labs and circulatory support, pharmacy. Those are all a few $1,000s here and there. He adds up to real money after a while. Radiology looks actually cheap by comparison. And then he's got some like physical therapy and occupational therapy, which also totals a few $1,000s. So if you like add up all of these costs, I think the total there would come to something like $75,000.